Okay guys, tonight we will be working on this guy back here. It is a 2018, it's fairly new, Mercedes S560, and the customer brought it to me after taking it to the dealer, and his main concern is check engine light. Now the vehicle seems to start, run, and drive pretty normal. No crazy signs of drivability issues, even though the check engine light is on. So quickly before turning on the camera, I scanned it, and I was surprised to see that this vehicle actually has basically like one or two codes, and it's related to intake and exhaust correlation, saying that the engine is at a time on bank 1. I've not run across this on this particular engine setup. It's actually the first one that I've seen. Not have dealt with it before. I'm very surprised that it has, or not surprised, that it has timing codes. Mercedes themselves are fairly good vehicles when needing to report it being out of time. The dealer, and I guess what they have told him was they were needing to charge him some crazy, ridiculous amount of money to tear apart the engine and to just, I guess, basically I'm assuming check if timing is correct or not, and then after that amount of work and money then would tell him what the cost of going forward from then on to rectify the problem. To get you a quick shot of the engine setup, it's very similar to what BMW's been using on the N63. It is the setup where you've got twin turbo in the valley of the engine, so your exhaust is up top and then your intakes are off to the sides. Don't know 100% how I'm gonna go about it and attack it, but just have generic ballpark ideas, and we're gonna do our best to find out what's going on with whatever testing method we can use. Okay, so I'm gonna re-scan the vehicle with you guys. So this engine setup or number designation is a 176. Okay. And the chassis is a 222. There you go. Alright. Okay, now we're in after sitting there waiting. Let's go ahead and just go straight to the engine computer. And you have your P0016 and 17. They're listed as stored, and it's for intake and exhaust. I don't want to clear these just yet. I just want to gather as much information as I can before doing anything. I can get you a shot of it running, what it sounds like. So it starts right up, drives normal, it seems to be normal, kind of weird, but we'll just go forward and see if we're out of time or not. Wanted to bring you along before doing any scoping. Went into live data, camshaft adaptation values, and found this screen. not 100% sure about this here, but these four, 1, 2, 3, 4, correction factor for installation positions, and then it's for exhaust, intake, correction factor of the right outlet camshaft. So the correction factor was 0 for that one on the exhaust on the right bank, actually. And then for the left bank outlet camshaft, there is a correction factor. And then this is intake, this is the right bank, and this is the left bank for intake. So both left banks are showing a correction factor of about 3 degrees. I haven't looked up service information, but it is looking like possibly left bank is going to be bank 1, which is the one that is throwing codes, due to what we're seeing here. The engine is idling right now. There's nothing changing. So I don't know if this is like a live data or something that it knows that it corrected to, and so it's showing you that. Yeah, so Revenant doesn't change or make a difference. Just out of curiosity, let's see if these are still listed as stored, and they're not. Okay, so we're back to currently being out of time on bank 1, supposedly. So there's definitely something going on. And we're kind of just gonna have to dig in and go from there and find out as much as we can. Okay guys, so here is the initial setup that I've got going. I decided to tap into all 4 cam sensors, ignition coil number 1 control for bank 1, ignition coil number 5 control for bank 2, and also in cylinder on number 1, in cylinder on number 5. And I believe, yeah, that's all. So I have no idea what it's going to do. I haven't keyed this up or ran it since last night when I gathered the scan data. So I've just spent quite a bit of time going through, it's actually 9 pages of wiring diagrams for the engine controls on this, and deciphering all the signal leads for the cam sensors, trying to figure out how the ignition system works on this. It is a system I've not run into. It's nothing too exotic, it's just the way it's made up and wired up. So trying to decipher all of that. I had to figure out how to short 4 spark plugs at one time. Luckily I had enough things sitting around. This is the only one I'm not liking because it's exposed. The others are directly shorted to ground, but it is what it is. I've never had to short 4 coils at one time. So I've got the scope running. I think we're ready to do initial crank. Like I said, not sure what it's going to do, what it's going to sound like. Alright, let's give it a shot, see what it does. Hopefully nothing crazy. Once decided to run. Go figure. Let me turn that off. Alright, so I've got the captures of the in-cylinders waveform for both banks here. This one with the red is going to be the known good bank, bank 2, cylinder 5. This one in the blue is going to be bank 1, cylinder 1, which this is the one that is the suspect bank. So we'll zoom in, take a look at some measurable points, and we'll do that bank to bank and compare the two. So we'll go ahead and set up our rulers, and then we will zoom in on the bottom portion, which is what we're interested in. Get this and try to get it in detail. And the points that I'll be measuring is this one here, that is exhaust valve opening. We'll eyeball that ramp. We'll take a look at where this is happening, because it looks to be an identifiable point that you can compare. I also like to measure this point here in the middle of the V or U, and then obviously when the intake valve closes. We'll go ahead and do the exhaust valve opening first. And I'm getting about 32 degrees. I'll write that down. Okay, and then I will do the area where the pressure starts to rise before the 360, because that would be somewhere near the possibly exhaust valve. Well, it's when the exhaust valve closes. I'm going to kind of just generically pick a spot just for right now. So let's call that maybe 28. And then the next point, we'll measure that in the middle. Call that 42. And lastly, we'll do the intake valve closing. And again, it all depends on where you're putting your cursors and using kind of best judgment for that. I'm getting 25. And I've got this one started, kind of work backwards. So intake valve closing. 2 points that are different off the bat. This exhaust valve closing, and it's very identifiable on this one. The exhaust plateau is also differently shaped, I'll call it. And this rising ramp is definitely way to the left, which will tell us that that exhaust valve is opening sooner. So we'll actually go there next. We'll do that measurement. Again, try and use best judgment of placement. That probably looks good there. So that's giving us 30, just under, let's call it 39. And then we'll do one there, very, very identifiable. So that's 38 there. And then the V, middle of the V or U afterwards, 34. and we did the intake already. Okay, so these are the results. So bank 1, 39, 38, 34, 38. Bank 2, 32, 28, 42, 25. So bank 1 is +7. So it's advanced 7 degrees on the exhaust valve opening. It is +10 advanced on the exhaust valve closing measurement. That bottom vacuum point, that middle of the V, it's happening 8 degrees sooner. And intake valve closing, it is actually the opposite. It is 12 degrees retarded. It's happening later as far as intake valve closing. That right there, bank to bank, is a definite difference in valve timing events and when they are happening. And this bad bank where the trouble codes are seems to be advanced on the exhaust and then delayed or retarded on the intake. This right here is enough to conclude or coincide with obviously the trouble codes, but also conclude that there is a physical timing issue, alignment, whatever you want to call it or refer it to, in bank 1. True physical measurements here going on. There's no denying it being compared bank to bank. This I think is enough to get to relay to the customer's information. It's not going to be a bad sensor deal. I'm not going to say that it's solenoid related either, because of solenoids for the phasers, because you've got both cams out of time and on that same bank as well, that is reporting that it's out of alignment, and then you're physically seeing it by the pressure changes happening at different points from the cam timings on that. Sensors are good, everything. So it's physically out of time. Like again, Mercedes is pretty good at reporting timing issues. Whether it's related due to one thing or another, that's what you got to find out. On this one, it's going to need timing work, and it's pretty much kind of a stopping point. I think it's enough good evidence without needing to have had open up the motor, the engine, and charging them some crazy amount of labor to figure out if it's out of time. This, I think, is a good enough way, at least to give him a good idea for him to decide what he wants to do. Again, this is not your everyday car, so we would have to make a decision based on whether he wants to pursue a repair of this large amount. I think that's all it can do on this one, or that, as far as I'm going to go, and just present it to the customer. Other than that, I hope that you picked up something from it. If you've got a V-bank, you have and timing codes on one bank, or even if you don't have timing codes, you can always compare bank to bank. Tend to do that a lot with some of these. Just to get an idea, use the other side. Use the same, try to stay as consistent, same sensor, same scaling, same conditions, cranking or running or both. Just make sure you keep everything aligned as best as you can, and gather your information so that you can compare, especially if you don't have a known good. You have a known good right next to it if there's no timing codes going on there. But this one was kind of cool. Like I said, my first experience was that engine setup on Mercedes. Um, but I was surprised to see that new already having some timing issues. Whether it's a stretch chain or a phaser, um, not sure. I was kind of thinking about it, maybe it possibly being the chain, because if you think about it, the intake is on the outside of the V, the exhaust is now in the middle of the V, and on the older setup, when the chain or the gear actually would have issues, you would have retarded codes for the passenger bank, bank one, actually same bank I think. Um, and if your tensioner is on the outside and you have, say, a stretch, it tends to throw codes for retarded on the exhaust. I can't remember exactly for intake, but if you're kind of trying to get my gist, the outside cam would go retarded, and on this one, the outside cam is the intake. So our intake actually on the bad bank is retarded, and then the exhaust is actually advanced. So it might be some to that extent as far as what physically is doing it. Could be, like I said, a chain thing, um, where that's all I could come up with as far as what possibly could be it. But that's, diving in too much in thought. But other than that, I hope you liked it and got some testing ideas from it. And that's it for now. We'll just move on to the next one.